This morning, I'm going to talk a little bit about my call. The sermon series that we're working in is Hearing God, and the one I was charged with was actually, the distractions. And I was very sick, but I recommend did a very good job. And sometimes I think that God puts things in our path so that somebody else can do the message that needs to happen. So I think I was sick because God wanted me to be. So that's how I'm going to keep it that way. I looked at the title of what I was supposed to be preaching on, which is self-sufficiency and pride. And to me, I'm looking at it and I said, I'm not a prideful person. At least I don't think I don't try to be prideful. And I really downplay most anything that God has given me to do because I don't want to be a prideful person. And so thinking about it today, I was looking at it, and self-sufficiency, that goes right along with being called in my story of how I was called into ministry and how I didn't follow that call for a good number of years. And Pastor Jeff said, if you want, share your story. And so this one's going to hit home. It's going to hit me at home, and I'm an emotional preacher. I cry a lot. I'm sorry if I make you cry. God took my anger and turned it into tears. And now I'm just a teared up mess all the time, so it's all right. Just ask my wife. I'm a much better person now than I was when I was angry. I was called, many of you guys know that we have Camp Pine Rock on our campus, and probably almost every one of us in here has been to Camp Pine Rock at some time. I grew up going to Camp Pine Rock. I grew up going, I think we moved here when I was in 3rd grade, and I think I went to camp from 3rd grade all the way until my junior year of high school when I quit attending Nazarene Church, unfortunately. So I went to camp every summer. Anytime we could go, we were up at Camp Pine Rock. I remember being up there at high school camp, I think it was my sophomore year, and I can't even remember who the preacher was. I believe it was Dave West, if you guys remember Dave West. I don't even remember what the sermon was, and I don't think that's what's important. But I remember you get that pounding in your chest, that feeling that you need to go to the altar. I went up to the altar and prayed, and God said, I'm calling you into ministry. I was like, that's not my plan. It's not what I want to do. I remember coming home from camp. I was really excited about what God had done. I was baptized up at Camp Pine Rock. I know that made a lot of parents mad, but I felt that's what I needed to do, was to say, I'm changed, and this is what God's calling me to. I got home and started telling my parents about what God was doing, and I told my dad I was going to tell this story this morning, because he's here in the back. And my dad said, youth pastors don't make very much money. Why don't you follow the career that you wanted? Which is automotive tech. I was very good at it. Even in high school, I was good at working on cars. So I did. I quit playing football my junior year of high school. I just quit playing. I started college early. I went to GCC and started an automotive program. And I poured everything I had into automotive. I poured everything I had into working on cars and working on my cars. And I had some pretty cool, some pretty nice ones. And they were either stolen or wrecked, or I no longer have them. But I chose to go into automotive career, and I did. And I was very good at it. And when I got out of school my first year, they said, you won't make more than $15,000, $20,000 your first year out. And I was good enough at working on cars that I cleared $50,000 my first year out of college. And that's where my pride comes in. And I didn't realize it before. But I had so much pride in the amount of money I made and the amount of toys I had and all the stuff that I had that I'd forgotten God and I'd forgotten my call. So all the years working in the automotive field, I would swear like a sailor. I would go to church on Sunday morning, and then I would leave a different person to go back to work on Monday. My language wasn't good. My anger was terrible. And I remember I was so mad one day at work, I took a big wrench, and I threw it all the way across the shop. I had no reason to be mad. I had no reason to be that angry. But when you're not doing what God has called you to do, there's a lot of stumbling blocks that come in the path as you're working through it. No matter how much money I made, how many toys I had, there was always a void. I tried to fill it with girlfriends, and that didn't help. I tried to fill it with going to the lake. I tried to fill it with alcohol. I tried to fill it with everything but with what God wanted. There was never enough money, and there was never enough toys. And that's how life is. When you're chasing after your own path, there's never enough. There's never enough, and you're never happy, and you're always trying to do it on your own. The sad thing is, I was 21 and I made more money than anyone I knew, and I was more broke than any of my friends. I had poured it all into my house, all into my cars. I had poured it everywhere else except back into God. And I didn't realize that I could have had the career and still serve God through it. I could have been a witness to all those people in the automotive industry. I could have been a witness to everybody I worked with. But instead, I chose to follow after them. My language reflected them. My attitude reflected them. And I had to have all the toys that every one of them had. I was attending church, but that was it. I was just going to church. A lot of us, we just come to church. And that's unfortunate. And I hope that through today, maybe we'll discover our call. And we'll discover that we need to rely on God a little bit more. Ignoring God's call, I was told money was the most important thing. That's what I got out of it. I know that's not what my dad meant by that. But that's what I took from it. And so I worked in the automotive industry for about 7 years. Every job I changed jobs a lot. Don't get me wrong. Like every 2 years, bam, it's like hire date, I get fired because of my language or my attitude or my actions towards a superior boss or whatever you want to call him. My anger got in the way, my attitude got in the way, and my desire for more money always got in the way. Every job I took, I made more money. And in 7 years, I went from $50,000 to $75,000 a year. And I was still empty, I was still lonely, and yes, I had toys, but it didn't fill the void. Part of this story, I'm going to tell you, coincidence or not, it happened in the house that Cheryl and I have just moved back into. I bought the house when I was 21 and had it built and thought it was great that I had a house, and all my friends thought it was great because we had a place to hang out. But there's one thing, when you start paying a house payment, it makes you really lonely because then you have nobody to go out. But I remember one night, and it was in 2005, and Cheryl and I had not even started dating yet. I was broke. I had just lost another job. And I remember sitting in the recliner at home saying there's got to be more. There's got to be more to what life is about than what I'm doing. There's got to be more. And I'm not saying this is the best thing you should ever do by any means, but I hadn't been in church. I hadn't been involved in church. I had gone to church. So I grabbed my Bible and I said, I'm going to find an answer. You know how that goes. And I did the whole flip it open and I'm going to point to a verse. And believe it or not, sometimes it works. And I've heard from more than one experience that it works. I'm not saying it's the best thing, and I probably wouldn't recommend it, because when you're already that low, God's going to bring somebody in your life anyway to help you through that. But my finger landed on Matthew 6:25. And I think that the verse is going to be up there today. I'm only going to do 25, and I'm going to skip down a little bit, so you follow with each other. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow, they do not reap, they do not store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And we're going to skip down to 32, because the rest is just repeating it pretty much. For the pagans run after all these things. When you're chasing finances, and you're chasing toys, and you're chasing a career that's not what you're supposed to be doing, You're literally a pagan running after things. And your heavenly Father knows what you need. Is pretty much what it says. But seek first the kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Isn't that the truth? I used to be a messed up mess, worrying about how I was going to pay for things, or how I was going to get my next new car, or how I was going to move up in the world, and I was going to get the next bigger job that would pay me that next amount of money that I needed. And instead of chasing after God, saying, God, I need you to fill this void, I need to lean on you. I need to lean on you so that you can fill all those voids. I need you to come in and take care of those things. I don't need to be worrying about it because you already got it. And that's what He told me that night. I remember it was Thursday, God saying to me, don't worry about it, I got this. I couldn't make my house payment that month because I had spent it all on having fun. I remember the next day, after saying, God, I know you got this, that there was a refund check in the bank, or in the mailbox, that covered my house payment and then some. And it was for a car that I had sold almost a year before. And they said, well, you didn't use your service contract, so here's the remainder balance of that. I didn't plan on that. God knew it was coming. And I was able to pay the payment. And I remember saying, okay, I'll trust you. From here out, I'm going to trust you. But I didn't. I remember him saying, you have wasted what I have given you. You have not used it for my kingdom. You have not used your talents to help glorify me. The whole time I was trying to do it on my own. The whole time I worked in the automotive field, it was about me. It was about what I had or what I could get. It was about what I was going after. And God reminded me that night that He called me into ministry. I didn't come into ministry because I lost my job. I didn't go into ministry because, well, I can't do anything else. I can't seem to keep a job. I'm going to try being a pastor. Let me tell you, being a pastor hasn't been easy. Cheryl and I got married in 2006. I lost a job about 2 months before we were supposed to get married. I told Cheryl, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know where I'm going from here. It was right around camp meeting time. And so Cheryl said, why don't you come up and stay with our family and hang out and help Dad do sound. I was like, okay, I don't have anything else to do, why not? I can't remember the service. I don't remember stuff like that. I can't remember who was even preaching. I think Cheryl would probably tell you. But I can't remember. But I remember going up to the altar that night. I remember going up to the altar with no plan, no hope. Like, I knew I was getting married in 2 months, I had no job. And I didn't know how that was going to work. Because right, I'm the man, I got to take care of the family. That's not true. I went to the altar and I got on my knees and I said, God, I'm done. I have nothing left to give. I have tried to do everything myself. I have done everything the way I thought it would work. Now I'm turning it all over to you because I have no other plan. And in the Nazarene Church, we like to call that sanctification. I know that night that God changed my life. My language was gone. My attitude was gone. My anger was removed. I know I was changed. There was a very important man that came to pray with me that night. At the time, I was running Cheryl and I were still attending Wordwood. Pastor Jeff was the music leader there, the music pastor at Wordwood. And that night, Pastor Jeff came and prayed with me. And ever since that night, he's been after me. Whether I come here or anytime I would come in town for Prescott, how's it going? How's your ministry going? How are you doing? When Jeff asked me to come here to be part of the church and to be one of your pastors, I told him no 3 times. I don't think it's right. Not now. I'm still suffering. A lot of you don't know I worked at Northgate for 2 years, and I was let go. And it was a hard time. It was a very hard time. It was a miserable. The way I was let go was miserable on me and my family. To the point that I wanted to leave the ministry. So this is the first time I've preached in almost 2 years. And it's because Jeff pursued me and said, there is more. God's not done with you. He continued to pursue me and pursue me and pursue me. I was let go in June, and it wasn't until November that I came a part of this church. Because I kept telling him no. Which means I kept telling God no. And I kept telling God, no, I'm going to run from my call. Again, I've been in the ministry for 7 years. And now I'm going to run from it again. Was it God's plan again? God calls us, and He's probably called each and every one of you to something in life. He's called you to be more than just somebody who comes to church. That night at the altar with Pastor Jeff, I laid it out. I said, God, you can have my checkbook. You can have my calendar. You can have my life. You can have everything in it. And take it. I don't want it anymore because I've screwed it up enough. I had spent everything I had. I had wasted many years doing what I thought I wanted to do. What I thought would be the best for me. And the whole time God says, I have a better plan. I clearly remember Pastor Jeff saying to me that night, give it to Him. Give it to Him and quit running from what God has called you to do. Releasing control to God and allowing Him to use me hasn't been the easiest. And I'm not telling you that everything has been easy, and it hasn't. I only shared a little bit about this story last year, but it hurt Cheryl and I really bad. We thought we had a church family there, and then it turns out we got stabbed in the back. I'm not sure who said this, and there's many people who have been credited with it, but I really love this phrase. It says, God doesn't call the equipped. He equips the called. I never thought I would be up in front of a church preaching. I thought maybe I'll work with youth, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. I'll work in the background, and I'll take care of things. But He equips us. I remember the first time I preached, I was a wreck. And I have a wedding ring, even though I don't have it on, because I would sit up here and I would spin it the whole time I'm preaching this morning. And after service, Cheryl would be like, get back. And I have to empty out my pockets and make sure I don't have anything to play with, because my ADD, even while I'm preaching, will come in and say, play with something. So I try not to have anything around me. Except I play with this CMO thing. God says it like this, and in 1 Corinthians 25:31, God has called both Jews and Greeks. Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than any human strength. Brothers and sisters, think of what you were when you were called. I was a mess. When I was called, I was a mess. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were influential. Not many were of noble birth. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak of the world to shape the strong. God chose the lowly things of the world and the despised things and the things that are not to nullify the things that are, so that no one may boast before him. It is because of him that you are in Christ Jesus, who has become for us wisdom from God. That is our righteousness, holiness, and redemption. Therefore it is written, let the one who boasts, boast in the Lord. That is the pride we're supposed to have. We're talking about our self-fulfillment, our lookout, our pride, and all of that stuff. The one we're supposed to boast in is God. I can't do anything without Him. I'm going to take some time this morning to spin and burn. Then I'll wrap up in a verse. I'll probably actually pray it over you as we leave. Worship team, if you have a song, I don't know if you do or not. Probably not. You can pick a song. I didn't plan this till last night. I want us to take some time in prayer, because I feel if you come to church, and maybe God's moving in you, maybe He's calling you to something right now. Maybe He called you several numbers of years ago, and maybe you've been running from it. God has called each and every one of us to do something more. I'm just good about it. God has called each and every one of us to do something more, to be something more than what we're currently doing. I know even as being a pastor, there's more I can do. There's more I can be, and there's more I can do for Him. I got a few questions I'm going to ask you, just to get you thinking about some things. What has God called you to be? In your career, in your job that you're doing right now, what does He say that you can do more in that? What is God calling you to do? Whether that's being more involved in church, or whether that's, I don't know, I'm going to help out. I don't know what it looks like, God, but I'm going to say I'm going to give it to you. The second question I have is, what has held you back from following His call in your life? Because there's probably something that's been holding you back. If you've been called, there's something that's holding you back. And that thing that's holding you back is probably something God's been dealing with you for a long time on, saying, you need to let go of that. Because that's keeping you from me. So what is it that you're holding on to that has caused you to hold back from God? Maybe there's some here this morning that say, I have ran from you for far too long. I have played the game and I have come to church every week, but I don't really trust you. I don't really know what it's like to live a life for you. And maybe some of you today just need to have your call renewed. Maybe we need to let go of self and allow God to work with us this morning. As the worship team plays, please come and spend some time with God this morning. Because there's nothing worse than coming to a church service, coming to a campground, coming somewhere, and coming to church and leaving the same as you got here. Because if you came to church the same and you weren't changed and nothing's going to change in your life, then why are you even here? Because if we play the game and we come to church each and every Sunday and all we do is we attend church, then all we're doing is playing a game. Because if you're not changed, and your heart's not changed, and your mind's not changed, then why did you come? It's not a social club. It's not a place to hang out. Yes, we have great friends at church, and we get to do awesome things because of church. But it's not the reason we come to church. We come to church to draw closer to God each and every week, to be renewed and revived. And so if you need to spend that time this morning so that you can make it through this week, I would say that that's a good place to start. So come. If you need to pray, if you need to spend time with God, come. I go this morning. I want to read a verse, and I'm going to pray it over you. It's found in 2 Corinthians 12, 9 through 10. And it says, "But he said to you, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That in this way, for Christ's sake, I delight in weakness, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong." So Father God, thank you for this time this morning. Thank you for those who came and rededicated their life to you, or maybe you're just now calling them to something, Father God. As they continue to pray, as we go forth today, let us have a good day in you. Let us not hold back. If we were changed this morning, tell somebody. If we were spoke to this morning, tell a friend. But God, let us just be in your presence the whole day as we go from this place. It's in your name we pray.